Ethan sat on the couch, his eyes locked on his phone, heart pounding in his chest. The room, dimly lit by the soft glow of a lamp, felt like a prison. Outside, the world moved on, unaware of the storm raging inside him. He opened a message from Mia. I love him. His stomach lurched as the words blurred in front of him. The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. This wasn't just a text. It was a betrayal, a knife twisted in his back. He had trusted Mia completely, but now, with this single message, everything had changed. His hands shook as he read the words again, the weight of the realization sinking deeper with every second. Why him? Why not me? Ethan's mind raced, searching for any explanation, any excuse that would make sense of it. There was none. His pulse raced, his chest tightening. He didn't have time to think, didn't want to process it. So he did what any person in shock would do. He acted. He forwarded the message to the group chat. It was impulsive, reckless even. But it was the only thing he could do to stop the feeling of suffocation in his chest. His thumb hovered over the send button for a moment, then pressed it. Send. The damage was done. The betrayal laid bare for everyone to see. Ethan sat back, staring at the screen, not knowing what would happen next. All he knew was that his world had just crumbled. The silence in the room was deafening. Ethan's phone buzzed again, and he stared at the screen, eyes wide but unseeing. The reality of the situation slowly crept in, gnawing at him. He had just sent a message that would change everything. What did I just do? He thought, his hands still trembling. His stomach churned as he scrolled through the chat, watching his friends react, unaware of how deep the wound had gone. They didn't know that Mia had confessed to loving someone else. They didn't know the history between him and Mia. No one did. His thumb hovered over the screen, but he couldn't bring himself to reply. He couldn't even look at it. His mind was racing, trying to piece together a narrative that would make sense of this. But there was no logic, no reason. Mia's words didn't make sense, and now, the consequences of sharing that message were unfolding rapidly. Each new message in the group chat felt like a jab to his already broken heart. What am I supposed to do now? He felt paralyzed. His friends were probably waiting for him to explain himself, but how could he? How could he explain something that had no explanation? Why had Mia texted him that? Why had she done this? Ethan stood up, pacing the room in a frantic attempt to escape the overwhelming sense of betrayal and helplessness. His thoughts were jumbled, the noise in his head louder than the soft hum of the city outside. What now? His legs felt weak as he walked back and forth, each step heavier than the last. His phone was still buzzing in his hand, but he couldn't bring himself to look at it. He already knew the reactions. He could imagine the questions and the accusations pouring in. But there was no escaping the truth. Mia loved someone else. Ethan had seen their relationship as a fortress, a bond that could withstand anything. He had been wrong. He had been blind. The realization hit him harder than anything he had ever felt before. And then in that moment, the phone buzzed again, breaking his spiral of thoughts. It was Mia. Hi. The notification stared up at him, mocking him, daring him to face the consequences of what he had just done. He hesitated, staring at the message, his finger hovering over it. His thumb moved towards the screen as if in slow motion, his body trembling. He could feel the weight of the decision, of what it meant to confront her, to try to understand what had happened. But he wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to hear what she had to say. Maybe he never would be. He let the phone buzz again, ignoring it. Ethan turned away, staring at the wall, his mind a whirlpool of unanswered questions. What is the next step? What do I do now? Finally, the silence was broken by a phone call. Mia Chow. Ethan's heart skipped a beat as he stared at the incoming call. His breath caught in his throat, and for a moment, he couldn't bring himself to answer. His fingers hovered over the green button, and his pulse thundered in his ears. He was terrified of what she might say, terrified of the confrontation that was now inevitable. What if she lies? What if she denies it? Ethan thought, the fear gnawing at his insides. But he couldn't avoid her forever. Not after what had happened. He had forwarded the message. He had made sure that the truth was out there for everyone to see. The guilt crept up on him again, but it didn't matter now. Mia had to be held accountable for what she had done, for the secrets she had kept. It's time to face her, Ethan thought, taking a deep breath. He swiped the green button, his heart beating harder in his chest. Phone connected, and the silence between them was suffocating. Mia's voice came through, shaky and uncertain. "Ethan," she said, her voice small. Ethan didn't know what to say. He could feel the weight of her words, but he couldn't trust them anymore. Not after the text. Not after the lies. "Ethan," Mia said again, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say. I never meant for this to happen." Ethan's grip tightened around the phone as he struggled to hold back the flood of emotions threatening to overwhelm him. How can she be so calm, he thought. The words she was speaking didn't make sense. How could she say she didn't mean for it to happen? She had chosen those words. She had made that decision, and now he had to live with the consequences. Ethan's voice, when it finally came, was cold, distant. "You didn't mean for it to happen? You love someone else, Mia. You love him," he said, his voice shaking with anger and hurt. Mia's silence stretched on the other end of the line, and Ethan could hear her trying to compose herself. But it didn't matter. The truth was already out. The betrayal had already sunk deep into Ethan's heart, and nothing Mia said would make it go away. "I was going to tell you, Ethan," Mia finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know how, and then, things just got complicated. I didn't want to hurt you." But Ethan had heard enough. There was nothing she could say now that would make it right. His chest tightened as he pressed his lips together, fighting back the tears. The call ended, and the silence felt louder than before. The morning after the call, Ethan found himself unable to sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Mia's words in his mind. The emptiness in the room felt suffocating, the space between him and his thoughts growing wider with each passing moment. "I didn't mean for it to happen." Mia's voice echoed in his head, but it was no comfort. How could she say that? Was she truly sorry, or was she just trying to make herself feel better? Ethan tossed and turned, trying to push the thoughts away, but they kept coming back, relentless. He glanced at his phone, still silent, the group chat messages blinking in and out of view. He hadn't responded to any of them, couldn't bring himself to. What was he supposed to say? "Hey guys, I just found out my girlfriend loves someone else. I'm crushed, but let's move on." The thought alone made his stomach twist. His friends weren't just his support system, they were his family. But now, even they felt like strangers, watching him from the outside as his world fell apart. Ethan finally picked up his phone, his fingers shaking as he scrolled through the group chat. Dao. Everyone had reacted to the forwarded message, but it was all just noise now. The weight of Mia's betrayal was too much to bear. He wanted answers. He needed to confront her, but the thought of facing her again was unbearable. How did it all go so wrong? The next day, Ethan couldn't avoid Mia any longer. They had agreed to meet at the park, a neutral place, far from their apartment, where they could talk without the weight of their past hanging over them. Ethan arrived early, sitting on a bench under a large oak tree, the shade offering little comfort against the sun's harsh rays. He was still wearing his hoodie, a sign of how little he cared about the world around him. He stared at the ground, waiting for her to arrive. Each minute felt like an hour. He was running through what he wanted to say, but the words never felt right. Why? Kept echoing in his mind. Why had Mia chosen someone else? Why hadn't she told him? When the sound of footsteps reached his ears, Ethan looked up to see Mia standing a few feet away, her face tense, unsure. She was wearing a light blue dress, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked as beautiful as ever, but there was something different about her, something guarded. Their eyes met, and for a split second, it felt like nothing had changed. But Ethan could see the guilt in her eyes, the hesitation. He stood up, heart pounding. "We need to talk," he said, his voice barely a whisper. Mia nodded, her lips trembling as she stepped closer, but neither of them knew where to begin. Mia finally spoke, her voice soft but strained. "I didn't want you to find out this way, Ethan. I didn't know how to tell you." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides as he tried to control his breathing. "How to tell me? You didn't think sending a message like that would hurt me? You didn't think I would find out?" His voice trembled with anger, but he was struggling to keep it under control. Mia's face faltered for a moment, her eyes filling with tears as she stepped closer. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "It was just a stupid mistake, Ethan. I never meant to fall for him. I never meant to hurt you." Ethan's eyes narrowed as he shook his head. "A mistake? Do you really think that makes it okay? You can't just call it a mistake and expect everything to go back to normal." He took a step back, his breath quickening. "You think I'm just supposed to forgive you for this?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Mia's hands trembled at her sides as she looked up at him, tears threatening to fall. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you." Ethan's chest felt tight as the conversation wore on. Mia was still apologizing, her voice soft, pleading with him to understand. But Ethan couldn't. He couldn't understand how she could do this to him. The anger inside him was building, swirling into a storm he could no longer control. His eyes were filled with frustration as he took another step back, trying to calm himself. "You don't get it, Mia," he said, his voice hoarse. "You don't understand what you've done to me. All this time I thought you were the one. And now I'm just left here, picking up the pieces of my own broken heart." He paused, wiping a hand over his face. "I don't know if I can forgive you. I don't know if I ever can." Mia stood frozen, her face pale. "Please don't say that," she begged, stepping closer to him. "I love you, Ethan. I really do." Ethan looked away, his jaw clenched, the words stabbing him deeper than he cared to admit. He wanted to believe her, but the damage had already been done. "I don't know what to believe anymore," he muttered, his voice barely audible. After a long silence, Ethan turned away from her. "I need some time to think, Mia. I need space. I can't do this right now." His words felt final, but deep down, he knew he wasn't ready to let go. "Not yet." Mia nodded, her eyes full of tears. "I understand," she whispered, her voice cracking. She took a hesitant step back, as though unsure whether she should leave. Ethan didn't look at her. He couldn't. The pain was too much. "Goodbye, Mia," he said, his voice low, and then he turned and walked away. As he left, he could feel her eyes on his back, but he couldn't stop. He had to leave. He had to get away from the mess they had created together. His heart was torn, but the decision was made. He didn't know if they could ever go back to what they had, but he couldn't stay and keep pretending that everything was okay. The weight of the conversation lingered as he walked further from her, his steps heavy with the burden of what had just transpired. Days passed after the confrontation in the park. Ethan kept his distance, retreating into a world of work and empty routines. His friends tried reaching out, but he wasn't ready to talk. His mind kept circling back to Mia. How did we get here? He replayed their memories in his mind, each moment of laughter and shared intimacy now tainted by the betrayal. His phone buzzed again, this time a text from his best friend, Jared. It was brief. "Mia called me." The message hung in the air, heavy with implication. Why did she call him? Ethan thought. Jared wasn't close to Mia, and this felt like another attempt to justify herself, but it struck Ethan like a dagger. He hadn't talked to Jared in days, avoiding even his closest friends. What could Mia possibly want from him now? With a heavy sigh, Ethan decided to confront the issue head-on. He needed to know what had happened during Maya's call with Jared. Did she talk about him? Did she even regret what she had done? Was she still in love with this other person? He couldn't keep running from the truth. After all, the silence was eating him alive. He sent a quick reply to Jared. "We need to talk. Meet me tonight." Later that evening, Ethan met Jared at their usual bar. The place was dimly lit, with the clinking of glasses in the background. Jared sat across from him, a frown etched on his face. "Ethan, I don't know if you want to hear this, but Mia's been a mess," Jared said, his voice low. "She told me things I'm not sure you want to know." Ethan felt his chest tighten as he leaned forward. "What did she say?" he demanded. Jared paused for a moment before speaking. "She's been crying, man. She says she regrets everything, but I'm not sure if that's enough." Ethan ran his hands through his hair, frustration rising. Of course she regrets it now. She didn't think she'd get caught. The bitterness in Ethan's voice was hard to hide, but he couldn't stop himself. "She says she loves you, but she's confused. She's torn between you and him. That's what she told me." The words hit Ethan like a ton of bricks. He had always wondered if it was real. Was Mia's love for him just another chapter in her life that she was ready to close? He didn't know if he could handle hearing it from someone else. The doubt was too much. He had trusted Mia with everything. And now, it felt like he didn't know anything about her anymore. The conversation hung in the air like smoke, thick and unspoken. Ethan's mind was racing, his thoughts spinning out of control. How could Mia be torn between him and someone else? How could she throw everything away so easily? His hand clenched around his drink, the glass cold against his palm, but it didn't help to numb the pain. He had always been there for her. He had put everything into their relationship. And now she was saying that it wasn't enough? Why wasn't I enough for her? He thought bitterly. I gave her everything, Jared, and now I have to share her with him? The words slipped out before he could stop them, but they felt like poison. Jared shifted in his seat, uneasy. "Ethan, I'm just telling you what she said. I'm not defending her, man." Ethan closed his eyes, trying to block out the world. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," he muttered. "I don't know if I can keep fighting for something that isn't real." Jared's expression softened, but he didn't know what to say. Ethan was beyond reasoning now, beyond understanding. All he could do was sit in the silence that followed, feeling the weight of the words sinking deeper. Ethan left the bar shortly after their conversation, the weight of Jared's words lingering in his mind. He walked aimlessly through the streets, his feet carrying him without purpose. His phone buzzed again. It was Mia. "Can we talk?" The message was brief, but it felt like a hammer to his chest. He didn't know how to respond. Every part of him wanted to scream, to let out all the pain he had been holding back, but he stayed silent. For the first time, he didn't know what he wanted. Should he confront her again? Should he demand the truth? Or should he let go and move on? He couldn't stay in this emotional purgatory forever. He was exhausted. His heart was tired. The weight of the past few days had drained him of the strength to fight. "What do I even say to her now?" he thought. He stood still in the middle of the street, staring at the phone, as the world moved around him. The answer wasn't clear, but he knew that it was time to make a decision. The decision weighed heavily on Ethan's shoulders, but as the night went on, he finally made up his mind. He couldn't keep living in limbo. He couldn't keep letting Mia dictate the terms of their relationship. It was time to face the truth, whatever it was. He sent her a message. "Meet me at the park tomorrow. I need closure." That was it. No more games, no more second guessing. The next day, he would see Mia, and they would face the wreckage of their relationship. Ethan couldn't predict what would happen next, but he knew that the time had come to move forward. The uncertainty was unbearable, and he was ready to confront whatever it took to get answers. He knew it wouldn't be easy, but he couldn't keep running. Not anymore. The day of the meeting arrived. Ethan walked to the park with a heavy heart. The familiar path, lined with old trees, seemed distant now. The weight of the past few weeks had left him exhausted, but he had to do this. He had to hear it from Mia, face to face. He couldn't keep running from the questions that haunted him. Why? How did we get here? His breath felt shallow as he approached the park bench where they had met before. The memories rushed back. Moments of laughter, of love, and of promises. Now, it all seemed so fragile, so easily broken. He found a spot, sitting on the edge of the bench, waiting. The cool breeze of the morning felt refreshing, but it couldn't take away the tightness in his chest. What if she says she's done with me? Ethan thought, his fingers tapping nervously on his knee. He stared ahead, watching the people walk by, but he couldn't focus. Time slowed as he waited for her to arrive. With every passing minute, the knot in his stomach tightened. He couldn't ignore it anymore. Mia had to speak her truth, and Ethan had to find his peace, no matter the cost. Mia arrived a few minutes later. She walked slowly toward him, her face pale and drawn. Her usual confidence seemed absent. She was dressed simply in a light gray sweater and jeans, her hands nervously tucked into her pockets. When she saw him sitting there, her pace slowed, and she took a deep breath. Ethan stood as she reached the bench, his heart pounding. Neither of them spoke for a moment. The silence between them felt heavy, like an unspoken barrier that neither knew how to break. Finally Mia spoke, her voice hesitant. "Ethan, I'm sorry for everything. I know I've hurt you." Her words were barely above a whisper, but they carried so much weight. Ethan felt his chest tighten again. Sorry, he thought bitterly. Sorry doesn't fix this. He wanted to lash out, to tell her how much she'd destroyed, but he couldn't find the words. He was afraid to hear what she would say next. She continued, her voice cracking. "I never meant for any of this to happen. I was confused, and I made mistakes. I don't know how to fix it, but I want to try." Ethan's mind was spinning, torn between the love he still felt for her and the betrayal that had changed everything. Ethan took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. He finally spoke, his voice low but firm. "Mia, you don't get to just apologize and think everything is fine. You hurt me, you broke my trust, and I don't know if I can ever get that back." His words hung in the air, heavy with emotion. He had spent so much time trying to understand why Mia had done what she did, but now, facing her, it didn't matter. The pain was still there, raw and fresh. Mia's face softened as she took a step closer, her voice trembling. "I know, and I'm so sorry, Ethan. I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know what happened. He made me feel seen in a way I hadn't felt in so long. But that's not an excuse, and I know I should have been honest with you." Ethan shook his head, frustration building. "But you weren't honest. You lied to me. You chose him and then you kept it a secret. How am I supposed to trust you again after that?" The question hung between them, unanswered. Ethan felt his anger rising. Mia's regret her apology. It didn't change the reality of the situation. She had betrayed him. Mia took a few steps back, her voice breaking as she spoke. "I don't know what I'm asking for, Ethan. I don't know if you can forgive me. But I need to tell you the truth. I love you, but I'm not sure if I can be with you anymore. I've hurt you too much, and I don't want to keep dragging you through this pain." Ethan's heart dropped at her words. His throat tightened, and he could barely breathe. She loved him, but it wasn't enough. Mia wasn't sure anymore, and that was the final blow. He had spent so much time waiting, hoping that she would come back to him, but now he realized that it was never going to be the same. They had changed. He had changed. "I don't know if I can love you the same way after this, Mia," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe we need to let go. Maybe we need to move on. We can't keep hurting each other like this." Mia's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't try to stop them. She simply nodded, acknowledging the truth of his words. The silence between them was suffocating. Ethan looked at Mia one last time, his heart heavy but resolute. "I think we need to go our separate ways, Mia," he said quietly. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, but I need to start healing. I need to find myself again." Mia's face crumbled at his words, but she didn't argue. There was nothing more to say. She knew this was coming. They both knew this was the end. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision settle in his chest. "Wah!" He turned away from her and started to walk towards the path that led out of the park. His footsteps felt slow, deliberate, but each one took him further from the heartbreak. He didn't know where he was going, but for the first time in weeks, he felt like he was moving forward, away from the past. Mia stood motionless, watching him go. She didn't chase after him because she knew this was what they both needed. The end of their story. The days following their conversation in the park were quiet, unsettling. Ethan kept to himself, spending more time in his apartment, trying to process everything. His phone was filled with messages from his friends, asking how he was, but he had no answers. He was still lost in the chaos Mia had left behind. Her absence felt more suffocating than he expected. He tried to distract himself, going to work, spending time with his friends, watching TV, but none of it filled the void she had left. Each day felt like a step forward, but it was always followed by 2 steps back. He missed her. He hated that he missed her. But he also knew that he couldn't go back. Mia had made her choice, and so had he. But the weight of the loss was still there, gnawing at him. He could still hear her voice in his mind, still see her face when they were happy. How did it go wrong, he wondered, replaying every moment in his mind, trying to pinpoint where everything had shattered. But there was no single answer, no single moment. Maybe it was the accumulation of small things. Maybe it was just fate. What Ethan did know was that he was learning to live with the pain. Slowly, painfully, he was starting to heal. Phone buzzed again. It was another message from Mia. He had avoided her messages for days, unsure of what to say. But this one was different. Ethan, I've been thinking a lot. I don't want you to hate me. I just want you to understand. His heart clenched as he read the words. He knew Mia was struggling, but he was still too raw to engage with her. He didn't know if he could ever understand. Why now? He thought, sitting on the edge of his bed, staring at the message. The question haunted him. Why had she sent this? Was it guilt, or did she still have feelings for him? Or was this just another attempt at closure for her? Ethan didn't know if he was ready for another conversation. Part of him wanted to respond, to clear the air, but the other part of him was terrified that it would only open old wounds. He felt stuck, caught between wanting to heal and not knowing if he could handle facing her again. Maybe one day, he thought. But not now. Ethan decided to go for a walk, needing some fresh air to clear his mind. The weather was crisp, the early autumn air carrying a chill that matched his mood. As he walked through the park, the fallen leaves crunched beneath his feet, the colors of the trees a reminder of how much time had passed since he and Mia had last been together. He remembered the park well, the place where they'd met, the place where they'd shared so many memories. Now, it felt foreign to him, like a place of grief rather than joy. He found a bench and sat, staring at the empty path ahead. How do you move on from something like this? Ethan thought. He had so many questions, but no answers. He couldn't go back to the past, but the future felt uncertain. It was hard to imagine a life without Mia in it, even though he knew it was for the best. The pain of letting go still hurt, but with each passing day, it became a little easier. He didn't know what came next, but for the first time, he felt like he was ready to start figuring it out. Maybe healing wasn't about finding all the answers. Maybe it was just about taking the first step, no matter how hard it was. Later that evening, Ethan met up with his friends at their favorite bar. It had been a while since they'd seen each other, and despite everything, it felt good to be surrounded by familiar faces. Jared was the first to notice the difference in him. "You okay, man? You've been kind of quiet lately?" Ethan nodded, taking a sip of his drink. "I'm getting there," he said, trying to smile. The truth was, he wasn't sure how he was doing. He still thought about Mia, still felt the ache in his chest, but he wasn't drowning in it anymore. Slowly, he was learning how to live without her. It wasn't easy, but it was better than staying stuck. "It's not going to happen overnight," Jared said, giving him a knowing look. "But you're moving forward, that's what matters." Ethan appreciated the encouragement, but he wasn't sure he believed it. Maybe one day, he thought. Maybe one day I'll be okay. The following week, Ethan received a final message from Mia. This time, he didn't hesitate. He opened it, knowing that this would be the last time he would hear from her. It was brief, but it was what he needed to hear. "I hope you find happiness, Ethan. I'm sorry for everything. You deserve the best." He read it over and over, the words slowly sinking in. It wasn't the closure he had hoped for, but it was enough. Mia had finally let go. And so had he. Ethan closed his phone and stared out the window, the evening light casting a soft glow over the city. For the first time in months, he felt a sense of peace. He wasn't completely healed, but he had come a long way. The journey was far from over, but now he could see the road ahead more clearly. The future was uncertain, but it was his to shape. "I'll be okay," he thought, standing up. He had no idea what the next chapter held, but for the first time, he was ready to face it. Ethan spent the next few weeks rediscovering himself. He threw himself into hobbies, ran, and reconnected with friends. Still, memories of Mia crept in. But he reminded himself of his decision to move on, learning to live with the loss, and embrace his future. Uncertain but full of potential. While at a cafe with friends, Ethan realized how much his life had changed. He was letting go of the past and embracing the future. For the first time, he felt fully present, moving on with hope, as his friends noticed the positive shift in him. As Ethan stood on his balcony, he reflected on his growth. He had learned to embrace uncertainty and thrive, realizing that the future was wide open. He no longer feared it, but looked forward to it with peace and readiness for whatever came next. Ethan had found joy in small things, and at a local art gallery, he met someone new, Laura. There was no rush, but their connection felt promising. Ethan was finally open to new beginnings, appreciating the present, and embracing whatever the future held. Ethan stood by his window, reflecting on how far he had come. He wasn't defined by his past anymore. Life would continue to challenge him, but he was ready for it. For the first time, he believed everything would be all right, as he moved forward with hope. Ethan had grown into a new version of himself. He was no longer haunted by his past with Mia. Though he still had moments of doubt, he embraced the uncertainty of his future. He was ready to step forward, knowing that he could handle whatever came his way. Ethan met Clara at a social gathering, and their conversation flowed easily. For the first time in a long time, he felt a genuine connection with someone new. It wasn't love at first sight, but the possibility of something more lingered in the air. As Ethan spent more time with Clara, he realized that love wasn't about rushing. Their connection was built on trust and understanding. He had learned from the past, and with Clara he felt a quiet confidence about his future, knowing that he was ready for whatever came next. Months passed, and Ethan had built a life he was proud of. He had new friends, new goals, and a sense of peace. Clara was a part of that life, but Ethan no longer felt the need to rush. He was open to whatever came next, knowing he was strong enough to handle it. Standing by the window, Ethan looked out at the city, feeling at peace. His journey had been long and painful, but he had found his way. He was no longer defined by his past. He was ready for whatever the future held, confident in his own strength and in his ability to move forward.